So my first memory of my grandma was when I was younger and I couldn't get to sleep and I didn't want to go to sleep when I was about 5. And my grandma came upstairs because she was staying with us and she told me this story, fancy story of this very girly world full of ponies, which were my favourite things at the time, kind of fairies and unicorns. And I was just in awe of how amazing my grandma was at telling the story. And I thought about it for a long time afterwards, and every time she came up to see us, I always begged for that story. Well, I liked baking with her, that was the main thing. We always used to make fairy cakes, and she gave us a lot more responsibility in the kitchen than my mum ever did. We allowed to make as much mess as possible. So what would happen is after my grandma, we went gardening with our grandpa, would come back and make fairy cakes with my grandma, and they always tasted the best because we actually put some effort into them. I think I must have been about 10, and what I kind of first noticed was that sometimes when she did activities that didn't really have any meaning, like she would be cleaning around the house, and I would be like, oh, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I actually don't really know. And so from there I kind of understood that, and my grandpa kind of said to me that, this is the way it's got to be. Like, sometimes it's kind of, she's just doing what she thinks is right. And so I kind of understood that, and yeah. Like, at first I thought, oh, I'm never gonna know my grandma again. But I've actually learned to enjoy every small moment. Like, I remember I went and visited her at the care home the other day and she said my name. And even though a while back it seemed like that was such a small thing, it actually meant so much to me. And she smiled at me, and she doesn't really smile that much anymore. And so I would say that, learn to enjoy the small moments. And it's not a different person, it's still the same person, just in a different way. A lot of people don't really understand that dementia is an umbrella term for a lot of different things. Like, when people say dementia, they think it's interchangeable with Alzheimer's, but actually my grandma has dementia with Lewy bodies, which is a completely different thing. So I think that's quite difficult to understand. And it's also quite difficult to understand that it's progressive, it gets worse. I think a lot of people think it's just one of the things that comes with old age, eccentricity, quirkiness, but it's something that will get worse, and it actually is a disease in its own right. That is a physical thing, not a mental thing. And so I think I find that very hard to explain to some people I knew. Well, looking through old albums of my parents also really helped, because they would, it kind of helps you cope, because you know that they did once have great memories. And they did have a great life, seeing pictures of my grandma at my mum's wedding, all dressed up, and my mum telling me that she was actually the one that started the conga line is something I could never imagine, but actually, it puts it into context, which is really great.